Hey guys, Mitch here with the TheAudioDabbler YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be unboxing and giving my first impressions of my new MIDI controller, and so stick around. Alright guys, so as you see in the title, my new MIDI controller is a Novation 49 SL MK3, the third generation of their SL line. And I will say this is not a sponsored video. This is my own completely honest opinion. I spent my own money on this, and I needed an upgrade, and so that's what I did. And I will say this is a beast of a controller. I've had it for about a week now, and I'm just still trying to figure out everything and how to incorporate it into everything, but not very good with the whole waiting, unboxing, fancy videos, and so I did put the camera on and I did take it out of the box, and I will roll that now. Alright, so it comes with a power supply, which you need, and I will get into that in a little bit, but it also comes with really nice braided USB cable, which is pretty high quality, and a little quick start guide. My first impressions is it's really nice, really robust, really heavy duty feeling. It's plastic and rubber, but the plastic seems high quality. Rubber seems really good. It's definitely on par if anybody has any of the other Novation products. Like the push, I've never messed with a push, but I've heard people talk about the buttons on this one and their their little mini, the new MK3 mini controller, and the buttons are on par with that. I have the Novation Launchpad Pro, and I really like the buttons on it, and these are just as good, if not better, than those. And so the 5 LED screens are very bright and can easily, see and disseminate what's on the screens and what each controller does, and what you're doing, where you're at in the sequence. They continue to upgrade the firmware to this, and so that is another big thing. They're still upgrading the circuit, and it's been out for some years, and so I was confident in buying this that they would continue to provide firmware updates to add functionality as they're able to, and they have already put out 2 additional firmware updates since I bought this, but since it came out last year. And so kudos to Novation for continuing to support your products. That's really good. It says a lot about you as a company, and definitely as a buyer would definitely invest more into that, because I know you're going to continue to support. Alright, so there's 16 buttons on here. They're clicky, but they're really good location, and they feel nice, and they're large enough to quickly hit, and then you do get feedback on what you pressed whenever on the LCD screens, which is really cool. Plan on using those to trigger some loops and things like that. It also has 16 drum pads, which are velocity sensitive, which are really nice, really touch sensitive. You have several different velocity curves that you can pick from, so if you're a heavy finger drummer or a light finger drummer, you can fiddle with the velocity curves to get something that fits your need. And this thing will light up a Christmas tree. It is like super bright. So many LEDs, so many lights flashing everywhere that it's a little overwhelming sometimes. Actually, it's not. It's really cool at night. had some fun in here in my studio at night, turn the lights off, and just watch it glow. So you may be asking, just with the plethora of MIDI controllers out there, why did I go with the Novation over any of the others? Well, for one, it's an upgrade to what I currently have, which is the Axiom 49 MK2. It's the second version of this one right here. And I will say this is a very good, robust controller. I have gigged with it. Well, I say gig. I've carried it around and played, had some different churches and things, and you know it's held up. One thing I will say about that controller is you can configure everything on the controller. So if you need to change a button parameter to something, you can do it on the controller, which is not what you can do with the Novation. I'll get into that in a second. But so it's very iOS friendly. The Axiom is. The Novation is still iOS friendly. It's plugged up. It works great. You just have to use a component software on a MacBook or something like that. So if you don't have a Mac or a PC all the time, then may not be the thing for you if you are iOS only. But once you get some templates and things set up, then I don't really see any need to, you know, just constantly bringing up components and hooking things up and changing this and changing that. So once I get an initial setup, I'll probably not launch components very often, unless there's an update or something like that. So that just keep that in mind, that to configure anything, you can't do anything on the controller. You have to use the software on a computer. Alright, so kind of the second reason that I wanted to upgrade for this one over my Axiom was quick access to switching between apps. Like there's a row of buttons across the top. You can just have those configured as templates. There's sessions, and inside of the sessions you have 8 templates that you can choose from, and each one of those can correspond to a different MIDI controller, and you don't have to finger tap and dance around and hold your foot up to change a MIDI controller or a patch or MIDI channel and a patch, because on the Axiom it does take a few seconds between patches to like fully change everything. And so if you're trying to do something quickly, oh, I need to be on this patch, it does take a moment, versus the Novation where changing between templates is as easy and instant as just pressing the button. And they're all labeled. It's really, really nice and convenient, and I plan on using that feature a lot. Maybe even set up patches naming all of the different iOS synths that I use and configure those. It's going to be a lot of work, but I think in the end it will pay off because I will have complete control with the controller. So the third thing that's really, really pushed me over the edge on getting this one versus other controllers is the 8-track step sequencer that's built in. Really, really cool, really, really fun, easy to program. You have a whole lot of versatility, and with the 1.2 update they added micro steps, so each step has 6 additional little micro steps that can, you know, offset timing a little bit. And with the 1.3 update, it made it really awesome because you can unquantize record, and so you can record in, you can play, and it does not automatically snap to the grid. It's going to snap to the nearest micro step, and so it's still not as high of a resolution as, you know, you could get just completely unquantized recording off the grid, but it is pretty nice, especially when you're on, you know, if you have them set to 16th notes. I mean, that's pretty good at resolution. Now when you bump it up to, you know, 8th notes or, you know, quarter notes or something like that, then the resolution is not as full, but still can add some, you know, variations, and it's really, really fun. Alright, so it wouldn't be a good, honest video if I didn't at least have something that I didn't necessarily like about this controller, which there's a few things. First, you have to have external power. It comes with a brick, and you have to have it plugged in. And I was a little bummed. I was like, man, it's not bus powered. And then I got to looking at it, and I was like, well, wait. There's 5 LCD screens. There's 700,000 million lights on this thing. 8-track sequencer. It can't run all that on a 5-volt USB power. And so, it is what it is. But, I will say, with the advancements in batteries and external batteries being able to charge like MacBook Pros, or MacBook, I don't know if they'll charge MacBook Pros, but the USB-C chargers, with those coming out there and being able to push a battery to 12 volts, I am almost certain that I will be able to find a solution to plug this into a battery to give it power, and USB to give it functionality. And I will, whenever I find that solution, I will definitely do a video on that, because that was my number one quickest con. I was like, man, but I got over it because I'm mostly in my studio. I don't travel around, and if I am traveling around, I usually need power anyway, because just to make sure my iPad's charged or whatever else, and so I usually have a little power strip, and so it's all good. I'm not too worried about it. So next, having to use, like I mentioned earlier, having to use the components. This is not really a con, but this is just something to look at. You have to have the components to configure everything on screen. So if you're completely iOS, may or may not be the best solution for you, unless you have access to a computer every so often. You could just bring it, plug it in, configure what you need to configure, take it off, and then with MIDI Learn and all the templates that are already built in, if you build you just a few templates, throw them on there, I think you'll be pretty good and pretty golden to get around most things if you're just on iOS. Now, I did email the developer of MIDI Synth Control. It's an app. I'm not really for sure too familiar with it, but I do know that it has you can edit the circuit with the iOS, and you can edit, like, he's got some Digitech and like the new Launchpad X things. You can configure those, kind of some stuff. And so I emailed him to ask him if he was going to provide, if he could update it for adding launch control, the 49SL. And so we'll wait and see on that. As of right now, just have to have a computer to configure it. So the last con, I didn't even realize until I was messing around syncing everything up with my iPad, is that the transport controls are either for the sequence or for in-control DAW. They don't have a non-in-control, non-sequence version that I can use to transport things. Now, it does send out MIDI clock, and so if you're sending out MIDI clock, it would send it out, but I could not get it to send any kind of MIDI note messages. And so for Novation, if you're watching this, one of your firmware updates, give us some sort of transport control for just through USB or MIDI DIN or whatever that's not in control and that's not part of the sequence. That way I could maybe start an app on my iPad with this, and then it would sync up with the tempo on the Novation, here or there. But there's still workarounds, and I'll be able to figure some stuff out and get some good jams and uses out of this thing. So I kind of just want to give you a rundown on my thought process and a couple of other controllers that I was really considering. The Arturia Keylab 49, not the Essential, but the full-on Keylab 49 provides really good support with all different types of DAWs versus the Novation, which is heavily Ableton integrated into, which I like because I use Ableton. I have Ableton Live Lite. I don't have the full version. I'm taking advantage during this quarantine to utilize their 90-day full version evaluation, but when it comes back, when it expires, I will still be pretty happy with just this controller and Ableton Live Lite, because 8 tracks can do a whole lot, especially when paired with an iPad. So that, and then there were some nice chord buttons on the Arturia that I liked, And then the other one I was looking at was the Arturia. I guess I'm a big fan of them. I do have their Mini Lab, which is really fun. But the Keylab, Keystep, what is it? Keystep Pro. That's it. So the Keystep Pro, which is a 4-track sequencer, smaller, a little smaller format, easier to travel with, but it does only have 4 tracks, and it doesn't give me the controllability, hands-on tactile controls that I was looking for. And so that's why I went ahead and chose the Novation, because it gave me more controls and a sequencer versus the Arturia Keylab or the Keystep Pro. So that was my thinking on that. But I will tell you that Oscillator Sink almost had me completely convinced about the Keystep Pro. And I will leave a link in the description, maybe a card up here if I can, of his video. It's a little lengthy, but I mean, it is brilliant, and I still want a Keystep. Even though I have this, I wanted this for, you know, a lot of hands-on MIDI controls. I would love that to just be able to just do some stuff with. So that controller, that Keystep Pro looks awesome. It just didn't give me everything I needed for what I needed to upgrade from with my Axiom. Alright, so thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you found this helpful, informative, you know, kind of gave you my reasons on why I wanted to get this controller versus, you know, the millions of other MIDI controllers out there. And hopefully this allows you to be able to make an informed decision on your controllers, especially if you use iOS, maybe if you use Ableton, or whatever your setup is. You know, hopefully this gave you at least some insight on what you can do, what you can't do. And I will be diving more and more into certain aspects of this as I get more familiar with it, and just give you my take on these things and that things. And hopefully I can build up some templates for some iOS apps, and, you know, maybe share that with people who use this for their main controller. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I have a Patreon and a direct PayPal me link if you're into supporting content creators in a monetary fashion. If not, then, you know, just give a thumbs up. That really helps the ratings, and I appreciate thumbs up. You know, if you don't like the content, then give it a thumbs down, and, you know, we'll go deal with that when it happens. And yeah, share it on your favorite social media site, and I will talk to you guys later.